Welcome to today's webinar that will be part one of the two-part Handrail series. My name is Laura Hackle, and today we will cover the functionality of SDS2's custom member handrail. Within the webinar, we will cover how to input handrail in modeling both flat and sloped, with and without returns, as well as how to locate the posts and rails where required. The first we're going to do is we're going to go to the modeling. And we're going to input a handrail that is flat without returns. So I'll go to my mezzanine level. And I'm going to put in a handrail along this line. When you put in the points that you pick, your handrail will be centered along those points. So today we're not going to be dealing with the connections, but I'm going to be putting on the handrail on top of the flange. If I wanted my handrail to connect into the web of this member, I would offset that where I want that handrail to be centered at, and then it will connect into the web. So I'm going to go to Handrail Add, and I do not want to start my point right here because it says up in my status line, locate top of steel for my left end. I want to actually start that over. And if I look down in the bottom right corner there, it says my axis orientation. And I want to offset that in my X direction over a foot, and then in my Y direction I want to bring that down 2 inches. So I'm going to come down here, type in a foot, -2 in my Y, and now when I pick that point, so it says locate top of steel for my left end, I'm going to pick that point right there at the intersection construction line. I can go ahead and turn off these offsets. And now in 2015 those phantom lines come up, and so I'm going to pick my second point. And it says locate top of steel for my right end. Now I'm not going to have any returns here, so I'll right click and right click again. And this is going to bring up my handrail edit screen. Now here it says that I can add a toe plate. I'll go ahead and leave that on there. The toe plate will be dependent on the walk side in the member edit screen. So the walk side will be based upon your member line. So if I want my walk side to be on the near side, that would be over on this area, but I want my walk side to be on the far side. So I'll click far side, and that's going to be the side that my toe plate is going to be on. That would be the same for the grab bar as well. So we have our top rail overview. Each of these overviews also has its own tab. So I have the top rail overview, my post overview, and my mid rail overview. My top rail and my mid rail will be in my rails tab, and my post overview will be in my posts. We also have our main section, and if I were to have a left return and right return, which I did not add here, but they're grayed out. So my top rail overview, the type I want, this will be for my posts and my mid rails as well. I can have it be an angle, flat bar, pipe, or tube. I'm going to leave it at pipe for now. We have our section size, and then the finished floor distance. So your finished floor distance will be based off of the top of your floor thickness. So I have my floor thickness over here in my main section at 1 inch. So it'll be from on top of that 1 inch to the top of my rail. Now we'll get into that when we get to the rails tab, and you can dependent on your or change your reference line. We have over in our main section that floor thickness again. We'll be coming back to the post spacing method, but right now it's just set to auto. That means I'm letting the system decide where to put those posts. I can do semi-auto, user, or semi-user. And I'll come back to all of those ones. Now this is, like I said, the system's going to decide where to put those posts, but it has a maximum spacing. So the maximum that those posts can be at is 4 foot. I can round up to the nearest 16th or 8th or whatever fraction I want to put in here. And then the connection. I'm just going to leave this at welded now. We'll get to connections later on in this second webinar. So I'm going to come down to my rails. And we have our top rails, which was also in our overview. The type, the section size, the grade and surface finish. We have the bend radius. And then here's where I was talked about the reference line. So I can have it be to the top of this top rail, the center, or the bottom. We also have our finished floor distance. Like I stated, that's going to be from the top of your floor thickness to, now it's going to say from my reference line to the top of that top rail. So here in my help menu, this kind of gives a visual here. So we have our floor thickness, so it'll be the top of the floor thickness to the top of that member line. And then the dimension type can be actual or vertical. This will be dependent on if you have it for a sloping handrail. Right now it does not matter. We have our mid rails, so that would be how many rails below the top rail. So I have 2 right now. I'm going to place a 3rd afterwards. The type, we have the angle, flat bar, pipe, and tube again. Section size, grade, surface finish. We have that bend radius again. The pipe post center line setback. So that will be from the center of the post to where you want the material to start for that mid rail. If you want it to fit to the post, so I'll do a fit command around that post. This would be for angles. You have an angle cutout clearance and an angle cutout radius. This would be if your posts and mid rails are all set to angle. Your dimension type, actual or vertical. We have the finished floor distance, so that will be from the top of that floor thickness again to the center of that bottom mid rail. And then we have our mid rail spacing, so that will be 9 inches from the center of that bottom mid rail to the center of that next mid rail. I'm just going to hit OK for this for now. You're still in the command to add a handrail, so I'll hit escape or right click and then process. I'll double click on this 2.1 here because I want to go to that grid line. So you'll see also the toe plate is on the far side. Now I'm going to add in construction line add material to show you the dimension here. So if I want to take the dimension, I'm going to come up an inch, so maybe in my z-axis I'll offset this an inch because that would be the top of my floor thickness. And then clear my offsets, and then that would be, sorry, 1 second here. Let's do this as well. So I'll offset that in my Z again an inch. Up to the top. So that'd be 3 foot 6 inches like we had for the finished floor distance. Maybe I want, instead of 2 mid rails, I want 3. And also I want my spacing. So right now if I measure my mid-rail spacing from the center to the center, it's 9. Maybe I want my mid-rail spacing to be 8, and I want 3 mid-rails in there. Maybe since I have 3 mid-rails, I also want my finished floor distance to be 3 foot 8. So if I double click on this again, To edit the member, you will want to double click on the member's main material. So the member's main material for the handrail will be this top rail. If I double clicked on a mid rail, it would just open up the material that made up that member. So here I'm going to come to my finished floor distance, set it to 3'8", change my count from 2 to 3, and you'll see down here for my mid rail spacing in the table, it's going to expand. So if I do 3 and hit tab, now it has my mid rail spacing from the bottom of the from the center of the bottom mid rail to the center of the next mid rail. Right now it's at 9. I want that to be 8 for both of them, so I'm going to change this to 8. Click OK. So now I have 3 mid rails in here, and now you see that this extended 2 inches as well. So I can go ahead and do construction line, add material to all of these. If I measure, I can come up in the Z 1 inch again. To the top, it's 3'8". And then I can go from the center of the mid rail to the center of the mid rail is 8. And center to center is 8. So those are our rails. Like I stated, we're going to come back to the different types of spacing for my posts. Right now they're just at auto. If I double click on this again, I can go to my overview tab. In my main section, my post spacing method, I'm going to drop that down to semi-auto. Now semi-auto still has the system have control over it, but it's saying my maximum left end, so here's my left end here, the maximum it can be to my first intermediate is 4 feet. But it's still telling the system it can decide where to put that. It could put it at 3'6" if the system thought it needed to go there. It's the same thing for my maximum, my right end to my first intermediate, that's set to 4 feet as well. We have a maximum spacing in between those posts. Round up again to the nearest fraction, and then we have our connection. I'm going to set these to 3'6". Click OK and process. So if I measure here, it'll be from the center of the post to the center of the post. So center to center will be 3'6". That'd be the same thing over on this side over here. I'd need to do construction line, add material for both of these posts. The measure from the center to the center is 3'6". So that was just saying the maximum that it can be. Didn't need to put 3'6" there. The system could have put 3'4" if it wanted. Well, let's say I want to for sure my maximum left end to first intermediate. Maybe I don't want a maximum and let the system decide. I want to make sure that that first intermediate is at 3 foot. So I can go to my pull down and do semi-user. Now you see it changes here where it doesn't say maximum left end and right end. It just says my left end to first intermediate will be at this location. So I'm going to type in 3 foot and click OK. And maybe I want my maximum spacing actually to be 3'6". Click OK and process. So now if I do the construction line, add material again and measure from the center to the center, that's at 3 foot. And then it's saying again my maximum spacing, I would need a construction line, add material here. Said the maximum it could be for it would be 3'6", and it's putting at 2'4", so it's letting the system decide that. I could also come in here and in my main section, go to my intermediate posts, and it's telling me right now from my left end distance, so for my left end here, the first post is at 3 foot, the second post is at 5'4", the third post would be at 7'8", and then the fourth post is at 10 foot. So here's my posts, my intermediate posts here. The intermediate ones are not the ones on the ends. I can change this if I want. This would be the same stuff as the semi-user. I can physically come in here and change it. Maybe I want that from 3 foot, I want it to be 6 foot. I can change it for one field if I wanted to. Here's the support. This would be the member number that this handrail is attached to. So that would be this beam, and I'll go ahead and show that as soon as we hit OK. And then we have the toe direction. The toe direction is only going to be based off of if you have it set to an angle. Right now we only have it set to a post for our, or a pipe for our posts, but if I had my post set to an angle, then I can dictate which toe direction I want that to be. This would not be for telling how the connection is. It's only for the angle. So if I click OK here and reprocess, so here I physically came in here and changed this to be 3 foot, and I want this one to be 6 foot from that left end. Just an example to show that you can change those individually in the fields in that table. Talking about the toe direction again, I can come in here. Maybe I want to change all of these to angles. And then if I come into my main section, my intermediate posts, right now all right here for my toe direction, this is set for all of them to be right. I could change that if I wanted to, the toe direction for a couple of them. For my left end distance, for this first intermediate, I could come in here and change the field to left. I'll change the second one to left as well, just to show you. Now this is only for my intermediate posts. I would need to go into my ends as well, and this tells me the toe direction for my left end and my right end. So I'll click OK here and process. So you see here how I changed the toe directions. So you don't have to have them all be the same. You can come in here and individually change them in that table. The next handrail I'm going to show is a flat handrail with returns. So I'm going to go to my mezzanine. I can either do open and go to mezzanine, or I can double click on mezzanine again and get there faster. And I'm going to add in my handrail here. So to show what that handrail is going to look like, this will be my top of steel for my left end, top of steel for my right end, top of steel for my left end return, and locate top of steel for my right end return. So since this is my left end, it's going to come up here for my return. Since this is my right end, it will come straight out here for my right end return. So I'll do handrail add again to the top of this member. So it says locate top of steel for my left end, locate top of steel for my right end, locate top of steel for my left return end, and now it's basing off my right end, locate top of steel for my right return end. Go back to my overview. I'm going to change these back to pipes. And click OK. Escape to get out of that so I'm not adding in another handrail. When I rotate out, We have the toe plate on there, which we'll get to toe plate more in the second webinar. And now you will see that with returns, it does not put a post at these corners. So we will need to trick the system to put in those posts. So I can double click on this. Again, I will want to set the main material for that member. It wouldn't be the main material, wouldn't be over on the returns. It will be the main material in that main section area. So I'll double click on it. I'm going to go to my left return. So I'll start off with my right return, go to my intermediate posts, and here we have that post spacing method again. Now I can either change this to semi-auto, which I'll do in my left return, or I can manually put that post in there. So if you right click in the field, there's a whole bunch of different options. So I can toggle to display the inches of 3'9". I can copy what's in this field. I can paste it. I can cut the row. I can copy the row. I can append a row. I can delete this row. And I can unmix this row. So I'm going to append this row. Now it's asking me for my right return. So this would still be my left end. It's saying my left end distance, where do I want that post? So I want that to be exactly at 0 from my left end. This is the left end of my right return. So I'm going to leave that at 0. My support, I'll put at 155, so that's the member that it's connecting to. And my toe direction doesn't matter because it's not an angle. Now when I go to my left return, I'm going to do this another way of going to my intermediate posts, changing this off of auto to semi-auto. Now it's saying my maximum left end to first intermediate. So that's saying my maximum left end to the first intermediate is at 4. My maximum right end to the first intermediate, yeah, I want that to be 0. But here's the problem. If I click 0 and tab, it becomes magenta. It does not allow you to put that 0 in there. So that's why you could append the row by leaving it at auto, or to trick it down to 0, to round down to 0 is 1/128, and I could click tab, and then it rounds down. Now it says the support is at -1. Well, it hasn't gone through processing yet. And then we have our maximum spacing still at 4 foot. And then round up if I wanted to. So I'm just going to click OK here and reprocess. And now I got those posts in the corners. Pretty much they get the same results. This is going to be exactly at 0. This is at 1/128, so it's not exactly at 0. There's still a decimal in there, but they pretty much get the same results. Now I see though, since we tricked the system, I have pieces of this mid-rail hanging over. One thing that you will need to know, if you edit this handrail, just like any other member, if you edit it, that you're not doing it through the member edit screen and you're physically changing that material on that connection or changing it on that member, it will make it graphical. Once it's graphical, it will not undergo any changes made until graphical is taken off, which I'll show you later on. So I'm going to select all 3 of these, right click edit, so I'm just editing the material. I'm going to take off this flange cut angle over on this side, so I'll put a 1/2 inch setback and put 0. Click OK. Now it's just telling me it's going to regenerate this material. So now it's still interfering with that post. Now over on the other side, it did a fit command. So what I'm going to want to do is do a fit command as well. So I'm going to rotate around this post because I'm going to be using a couple different fit commands here. So if I go to my model, material fit mode, I could do these individually, but I'm going to be using my fit exact and my fit miter. So I'm going to do my material fit mode, or FT on my keyboard. Now it's saying, which one do I want to do? Cope, miter, or exact with my button bindings. I'm going to right click on the first member. I want to exact, and the material I want to fit to is that post. Right click OK. I'm just going to have it set to 0. I'm going to verify the cut. And I'm going to do it for the other ones as well. Okay, so I have all those. Now I want to miter these two together. Now I can select all 6 of these, and it's only going to miter the materials that are intersecting. So I'm going to middle click for miter, and I'm going to hold down my shift key to select all 6 of those mid rails. Right click OK, no clearance there, and now you see it mitered all those. I want to say yes, I'll verify that, and I'm going to escape out of that command. So now I'm no longer in that mode. I would be doing the exact same operation over on this side as well. But that's a way to trick the system into putting the posts right at the corners. So we have so far, we've left our ends. I've just left them as posts. So if I double click this, up here we have our walk side. We had our left end is set to a return. Our left return end, I've just been leaving at a post. My right end is set to a return. My right return end, maybe I want to set this to a P end. And my left return end, right now since it's set to a post, maybe I want to add in a handrail here and create a splice connection. So I'm going to do my left end, or my left return end, I'm going to set it to a splice. Click OK. And then I'm also going to open up my mezzanine again to add in that second handrail for the splice connection. So I'll add in my first point, locate top of steel for my left return, or my left end, locate top of steel for my right end. I'm going to come down in my Y, negative a foot, and I do not want any returns here. So that was my first point, so that was my left end. My left end, I want to set that to a splice. And my right end would be a post, that's okay. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and process. Turn off my jet check. I'm also going to change my walk side. Now you see here, I changed this one originally to a splice to splice in with this handrail here, and I changed that one to a P end, but it did not change as well. Well, the reason for that is because when I edited those mid rails, I made that graphical. So if I double click on this, up in the upper right corner it's set to graphical. If I uncheck that and then click OK, so I had my left return end set to a splice, my right return end to set to a P end. I click OK. Now reprocess. So I have my splice in here, and I will want posts a foot apart from that splice, so I'm just going to double click on this. So this is my left end. So I'll go to my main section, my intermediate post. From I set this to semi-auto, my maximum left end to first intermediate, put that at a foot. And here's my left return end. So I'll go to my left return. My maximum end to first intermediate, I'll put that at a foot. So now I have those posts in there. I can also add in a connection here. So if I can do either one, I'll just double click on this one right here. I'll go to my ends. I have for my top rail, I can add in a connection or I can set it back, my top rail. So if I click add connection, I can add in a pipe or a round bar. The section size, the grade, the surface finish. We have the length, so that'll be the length of the entire connection. And the stick through, how much of that connection is going to stick through to the other member. I can do that for my top rail, my mid rail, that'll be the exact same settings, and my toe plate, which we'll get to later on when we discuss toe plate. So if I click OK, reprocess. I'm going to turn this member to stick. And now you can see here is our connection material. The next handrail that we'll go through is a sloping handrail without returns. So I'm going to open up my mezzanine again. And I want to add in a handrail along this line. So since we add it, I'm going to add the handrail, so that's going to be where it's centered at. I want to center it on the gauge line of the stair stringer. So I can do construction line add material, select that stair stringer, and then I can do a section view along this gauge line. Another thing too is when we add in handrail, we want to add it at the nosing line. So if I double click on this stair, I can go over here on the right side. I have my stringer nosing dimension is set to 1.5, so I'll have to keep that in mind when I add that in. So I'll go to section view, take off my offsets, and I'll do a section line or a section view along this gauge line. Turn on my depth check, and then I can do construction line add material. I'm going to do it to both of these, and I want to come down 1.5 inches from the top of that stringer. So I'll do come down dimension 1.5. And then that's going to be where I start to add in my, that's going to be where I add in my handrail along this slope. So I'm also going to want to add in a couple construction lines here. I want to offset that over 6 inches. That's going to be where I want my top of steel for my left end. My top is steel for my right end. I'm going to want to pick from here, and I want a perpendicular line. And I'm going to come down from that line. Six inches. So that's going to be my top of steel for my right end. So we're going to go ahead and add in those points. So here we'll see handrail add. Locate the top of steel for my left end since I want to add that in at my nosing dimension. Top of steel for my right end. And then I'm not going to have returns here, so I'll right click and right click again. Alright, so I have here in my overview, I have the same thing for my floor thicknesses, my post spacing method, I'm just going to leave that okay. My connection, I'm going to go ahead and change that to a base plate. So then I would come over to my main section. I just want to show you guys what the connection would look like. We'll be going through connections more in depth when we get to the part 2 of the handrail series. I'll change my center to center. I'm going to change that to 6 so it's not interfering with that post. And we have the top of support distance. So the top of support distance will be from that nosing line that our posts are going to go into to where we want that connection to start out as. So that will always be that will always come up vertically. So right now if I leave this at 0, I'll show you what happens. So I'm going to process. Oh, I left that spliced, so I'll just need to double click on that. Maybe I want to change my left end to a P end. And I'll also want to change my walk side. Right now it's on near side. I'm going to take off my toe plate, maybe add a grab bar. My walk side, I want that to be far side. So the good thing about adding in these members, you can always double click to edit them. So now if I come in here, it's at 0. So if I were to, I'm just going to take this off really quick and show you if this was set to the welded again and set to 0. It's going to be at that 1.5. So I can do the construction line, add material, and I can measure up from where I want that connection to start at. I want it to start in the vertical, so that would be my top of support. So I'm going to measure here. So that would be 1 3/4. So if I double click on this, I can set it back to my base plate. And then my top of support, I want that to start at 1 3/4. Click OK and reprocess. So we have that starting at top of steel, or the top of support. We moved it up 1 3/4. Now another thing that we talked about was if we were to have this be an actual versus vertical dimension for our finished floor distance. So if I double click on this, went into my rails, right now it's set to vertical, so it's saying vertically it's going to be 3'8". So if I were to do construction line add material to this top rail and double click on it again and change it to actual, change both of these to actual and click OK, and reprocess. you'll see now it's changed and moved up. Another thing that I added on here, which I'll go through, just barely touch base on, is I added a grab bar. So the grab bar will cover more in the second part, but the grab bar, let's say this one, right now the grab bar is just sticking out. If I want that to return to the post, I can go into my ends, go to my grab bar. Right now it's set to condition is the plain end. I can return to the post for both of these. There's a corner if I want that to be elbow or mitered. If it's elbowed, I can set the radius, the pipe post setback, so that's how far from the center of that post it's going to set back the material. And then if I want it to fit to the post. So I'll just re-add this in. So now you can see the handrail came in here and returned to the post, the grab bar. The last one we have here is going to be a sloping handrail with returns. So if I open up my mezzanine again, take off my depth check, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Construction line add material, and I'm going to add it onto my gauge line. So I'll do a section view, pick along the gauge line, turn my depth check on, and then I'm going to want to also pick my posts. So to pick my posts, I'm going to set up some construction lines. So I have the perpendicular line to the stair stringer that I picked down 6 inches. I'm also go from the left, so I went down 6 inches here, and then I want to go 3'6" spacing. So I'll do from here 3'6" down. Go ahead and get rid of this construction line here. Get rid of some of these construction lines. So these points right here are all going to be the points that I'm going to be picking for my intermediate posts. So when I change that to user, along the first time that you open that member edit screen, you will pick user and then locate. And then this is the only time that you can pick where you want those posts to be located. So this is going to be my top of steel for my left end. My top of steel for my right end is going to be right up at this point right here, which I'll show you. But of course I want to put it at the nosing line. And then my intermediate post, so this will be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I also want to do it at the nosing line here. So I want to come down 1.5 over on this side as well. So and then I'll come over 6 inches. Okay, so I can add in my handrail by doing handrail add. Locate top of steel for my left end. Locate top of steel for my right end. Locate top of steel for my right or my left return end. Let's say I actually want that one to come out. I forgot to put a line in there. But I want that one to come out 2 feet. And then locate top of steel for my right return end. So here's my locate top of steel for my right return end. I'm going to go ahead and keep the grab bar on there. My walk side this time is going to be my near side. My left end is set to a return. My left return end, I'm going to put that as a P end. My right end is set to a return, and my right return end I'm going to set to a post. Another thing, my rails, I'm going to come back down here and set these to vertical for my dimension type. And then in the overview here for my post spacing method, I'll change that to user. My post spacing count, like we talked about, we said that was 4. Locate. So here's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So I have those in there. Like I said, the connection type, right now it's set to base plate. If I want that to come up, I will need to do it again. It would be the exact same. So if I go into my main section, the top of support is set to 1 3/4. So I'll click OK here and process. So here I have that set to a P end, and it comes out, and I set that one as well to a return, and that one comes out as well. Here I can double click. I have my left return, my intermediate post, right now there's none set. My right return, there's none set for that as well. I could put one in there as a semi-auto. My maximum left end to first intermediate, maybe I want that to come over to 2 feet. My maximum right end to first intermediate, well, I don't want one there, so I could leave that at 4 if I wanted to, or I could come down here and delete it by just right click, and I could delete row, so I'm only going to have one end at 2 feet. Or I could do that one again where we do auto and we just leave the maximum spacing and we have it set to there. I'm just going to come down here and do that semi-auto again where we have 2 feet. The maximum right end distance is 4 feet. Let me click OK. And I have one coming over from 2 feet over. And I could change that if I would like. Now another thing too is we have for our base plates, you would also need to set that into your returns. So if I come over to my right return end, my connection, right now it's just set to welded. I would also need to set that to a base plate and set my top of support to 1 3/4. My center is 6. Click OK. So I have my base plate there. So like I said, again, we will come into the connections for the part 2 of the Handrail series. That concludes today's webinar. If you have any questions, please ask your support rep.